Hey guys, camera for the Girlfriend Experience, Season 1, Episode 4, Crossing the Line. I'm sorry it took me a while to review this episode. If you guys remember, I had this episode up a while ago, and then whatever happens is that my audio just cut out, and then it just wasn't working after that. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to review this episode till now. I apologize for that. I know I'll be late to Game of Thrones tonight, but I have 2 episodes to review. I reviewed 2 episodes in the time. So this episode, yes, I have seen the previous episode, and there were a lot of things a lot of questions that I have about this episode that I already had to answer because of the other episode. But I'm going to review both episodes back to back. I did not see tonight's episode. I'm going to try to be more consistent with the Girlfriend Experience. That way, once I finish it, I can then get to Marseille, because I want to get to Marseille and review Marseille for you guys. But let's get to this episode. As you guys know, I've really been enjoying the show so far, and this by far was the strongest episode so far. I do think episode 5 was even stronger, but this was a really great episode. I definitely really enjoyed it. And like I said, a lot of Christine's, life, the 3 lives that she has and juggling these 3 jobs, it's really starting to become a problem in this episode. But let's just get into this episode. There's a lot to get into, and that title, Crossing the Line, I think really is the perfect title for this episode, because it really is about Christine, crossing the line. Not just her crossing the line, but how far really is crossing the line. We'll get into that. And right away, we get a very good example of why this episode's called Crossing the Line. We see Kevin, he gets out of bed, he gets dressed, and Chelsea's surprised that he finished without having an orgasm, and she asks him what's going on. And as we have already seen, Kevin really doesn't just want sex from her. This isn't just someone he's there to have sex with. He wants passion, and he tells him to sit down. He says that he makes good money, but probably not as much as her other clients, and he's having a hard time to come up with money to see her, and he started taking out loans, and says he's sorry, he doesn't mean to make her uncomfortable, but it would tear him up if he couldn't see her again. And she says that they should try seeing each other a little bit less, and you can tell she's a bit freaked out. Like, she didn't expect her clients to have this deep of a connection with her, and this is not really something that she's expecting. And the way that, Riley Coe, plays Christine in the scene, what I love is that we don't really know how Christine is initially feeling when she's Chelsea. I really thought that was very well done. She says that he says that he's in love with her, literally says he's in love, and she says he's putting her in a very uncomfortable position, because obviously, this to her is just a job. There is no passion and no love into this, and he says he knows and he's sorry. She asks what if she takes some time, figure some kind of arrangement, that works for both of them and keeps them together, and Kevin agrees to it and thanks her. And she then goes to Abby's new apartment. Now, very interesting scene between her and Kevin. Already is really showing their relationship, and I like the way that we're headed with these two. You can really tell that Kevin wants a lot more than just this little job, and it's a lot more to him than just that. It seems to be a lot more, and I definitely do like seeing that. So she then goes to Abby, who, of course, we heard about Abby in the last episode, and we do get to meet Abby in this episode. And right away, you can tell the difference between Christine and Abby. Christine is clearly very career-oriented, while Abby is not really as like that, but she definitely is kind of like that, but definitely not as well, which we'll get into. But she hugs her, asks how her trip was, and she says she got off the phone with her mom and gave her a massive guilt trip about getting to see her. And Christine says that she can come visit, and Abby says that she could call, and Christine says that she does it all the time, and Abby says that she doesn't believe her, she's being too defensive, and Abby talks about what she's been doing. We learn that she's a DA, and talks about some of the trust exercise they've been doing to calm themselves. Christine says her job is to put people in prison, and Abby says they put bad people in prison, and they then talk about Christine's position at Kirkland, and Christine says she's doing a lot more at the firm than she ever did in class and studying, and Abby says that she'll get there, and says she knows, and Abby asks if she's still dating Jake, who, Jake was, of course, her roommate. This Jake was not the guy, Jake was not Tariq. I thought Tariq was who Jake was, but Jake clearly was the guy that she was living with. Of course, we haven't heard about Jake since then, and I think this episode really shows why we haven't seen those characters. Why haven't we seen Jake? Why haven't we seen Avery? Where are these characters been? Basically, we find out that Christine says that she never was, and Abby says she didn't mean he was her boyfriend. Christine says she just found him too available, and says she doesn't enjoy spending time with people. She finds it to be a waste of time and makes her anxious. And Abby says that maybe she didn't like Jake, and Christine says she doesn't like sharing time with anyone unless something is being accomplished, which is why she doesn't see Avery, and it's also why she doesn't see Jake, because Avery and her relationship, nothing is being done there, really. Avery's no longer working there. Really, the only reason I think Christine befriended Avery in the first place was, 1, so she could probably get some tips in the law firm that she was working there, and 2, also because she knew Avery was working as a GFE, and that's what Christine is doing. And now that neither of those things are happening, now, Avery's no longer as big as a principle in Christine's life. And this is something that I thought was very well done here. And what I love is that from the beginning of this show, it looked like Avery was going to be one of our main characters. And as we've seen, she really isn't one of our main characters. She's barely even a character in the show anymore. She's just kind of an outside force that helped Christine, which I really do like seeing. And Basically, Abby says she gets it, that she values time, and tells her that she's planning on staying the weekend and would love to hang out with her. And Christine says she wouldn't even be around, but she would be okay with her staying. Abby says she understands those second-year laws, and she doesn't have to explain to her, and says she'll pay for the food. And just a really interesting scene. I mean, we found out a lot about this scene, and I really did enjoy that. But then we see Chelsea. She's with Michael, who tells her that his wife hung up on him, and she says the phone might have lost reception, and he says that she went to another real estate venture and has already done many before. He says they don't talk anymore except when she wants money, and it's his fault. He should have told her no, and she asks what that means, and he says that he bet that she was a handful with her father, and still is, and she says they got along really well, and they both agreed they miss each other, and he says he should just stay there with her, and she says that she'd like that. It's a very interesting scene, because you don't really know if Christine is sincere, but here it really does seem like she is sincere, and I think throughout this entire episode and the next episode as well, you do see that she actually did get close to Michael, and it really does seem like she genuinely cares about Michael. In fact, out of all the clients, Michael seems to be the one that she is the most sincere with. The other ones, she's not sincere with, but this one, Michael really does seem like she's sincere with, and I really did like seeing that. I thought there was some really good stuff there with Michael and Chelsea, because of course, again, to Michael, Chelsea is a lot more to him, and I definitely did like seeing that. He's definitely getting attached to her, and that scene where he talks about how she was a handful with her father, I mean, we don't know really if she's telling the truth, because again, we know Christine lies a lot when she's Chelsea. So Christine then goes to David's party, sees David talking to Tariq Barr, not her roommate. Tariq is a completely different guy. I got that completely wrong. I don't know how I did, but I fucked up on that. Tariq is actually the guy that is working for David, and right away you can see that Tariq is very particular, and he tells David to get to the client, to get to sign the line, which is dotted, and David says it's a given. He knows he's stalling, but it's got to be a given. Erin walks in with Wright, and David says, "Speak of the devil," and tells Tariq to excuse him. And Christine then gives David wine. He says to drink up because that's why they are there for. And David sees Wright, says he didn't expect to see him there, and Wright says that he wanted to show his face and clear the water. And David asked if him and Erin came together, and Christine introduced herself to Wright. David sees his wife, Megan, and we find a bit more about David in this episode that I really did like seeing. David so far has been Christine's boss. We've seen that he's suffered a lot of legal problems and things like that, obviously with the mistrials and things like that. But this episode, I think, really dives deeper into who he really is, which I really did like seeing. I like that we are seeing more of David, because they could have easily just made David a supporting character, and he's anything but. In fact, in this episode, those two threads, the big two storylines we've been following, do come together, and I really love seeing that. So we do meet Megan, basically, and thanks her for coming, and tells David she has to pick up the boys from soccer. Susan goes up to her, greets her. David pulls her aside, asks if someone else can pick them up, because they're friends too, and she tells him to not pretend this party has anything to do with her. It's about him. She just showed up, and she really is not there for any other reason. She's not there for him. This is his party. He's the one that set this up, and Tariq once again tells him to sign. He says he's kidding. David says that he's going to get, and it's a very interesting scene between David and Megan. You can really see that these two are very distant. You can see the relation that they have. Tariq once again tells him to sign. He says he's kidding. David says he's going to get a water, and he'll thank him later. He then goes up to Christine and asks her to pretend that she's talking to him for a minute, and she says she is. He says he's avoiding drunk Tariq, and she says she appreciates the honesty. He says he always is, and they both agree that that's not true. She asks if she looks desperate, and he says she does, and she says he said he's never honest, and he says he is when it matters. And very much how Christine doesn't like to do things when nothing is being accomplished. David doesn't like to lie unless, doesn't like to tell the truth unless, something is being accomplished. So you really do see how similar David and Christine really are. Even though they're doing things for different reasons, they do have reasons to do that. Christine, in the sense that she needs something to be accomplished constantly. David has a problem with lying, you can tell. He doesn't lie unless it's absolutely necessary, which I really did like seeing, because it really does show why we're following these two characters. Because let's face it, as much as this is David's story, as much as it is Christine's story, and I really think we do see that here. So Chelsea then goes to Ryan, who asks if she's seeing anyone else outside of work. She says she's never had a real boyfriend, and he asks why not, and she says she doesn't have the same reactions to things, basically, or feelings about the way things are supposed to be. And we know this is true. We know for a fact that she doesn't really react to things in the way you'd expect her to. And she asks him if that makes any sense at all. And he says that she's like a female Ted Bundy, and she says she should have made something up. He says he says, like always, because he, of course, Ryan was the first person to call her out on bullshit. He knows that she was lying. He knew what was going on there. And she asks if he feels like she's lying to him. He says fucking with her and fucking her is a whole lot more fun. He then takes a call from his work, and then after sex tells Chelsea that he'll pay for 4 hours, even though it's only been 2, and tells her he has to go. And again, you do see that Ryan and Chelsea, things between them get a lot more complicated as well, which we'll get into. Chelsea then has sex with Michael, and afterwards he talks about a foot fungus that he's worried about getting, which is why he keeps his socks on. And it's a very interesting scene. I mean, basically she says that he can keep them on at any time, and again, in that scene, the thing I love is that Christine, again, has that control. He's getting that approval from Christine. This is not him saying, oh, I need to keep my shoes on. It's that him basically getting her approval, which, again, is a big part of the show, is a big part of her having that control, and that's a perfect example of that. So Erin gets a call from David after she has had sex with Wright, and Tariq tells David that Wright probably needs to throw a tantrum here, and there he's signing, but he wants Erin to head it, and David says he spoke to Wright this morning and said nothing about Erin, and Tariq says that he's staying with them, but only if Erin takes over, but David can still work on the case. And you do kind of get the sense that Erin is having sex with Wright in order to make sure that in order that they retain him in Kirkland. And the only way, there's a scene in the episode where we basically do see this, but it's a very interesting scene. You see that Erin and David, that partnership is kind of splitting up, and David is surprised. He couldn't believe this is happening, and at the board, David shakes, says he's glad things are working out with Wright, and finds out that Zucker has been detained, and Erin says she's glad they could make it right, just need a little reassurance, and he could stay with them, and the head of the board says he's surprised with Erin's humility, and Wright says that she's very persuasive, and David looks at them in disgust, and it's not because of the fact that, Erin, I don't think it's just because of the fact that Erin is, heading this and he's not. I think it's also because of the fact that the way Erin did this. Erin didn't do this in a regular way. She took advantage of her, basically she took advantage of the opportunity and had sex with Wright in order to retain him, which is very much what Christine is doing, and it's very interesting the way that scene was done. I really did enjoy it, and again, we don't really know what's going on between Erin and David, but again, just like the other scenes we've seen, it really does seem like there's more than just them being colleagues. I really do think this shows that, and basically, we then see after this, she says she saw an opportunity and took it, and there wasn't time to tell him sooner. He says now is not the time. Susan then gives Christine a folder, says to give it to David when she's done, and she goes to David, gives him the folder, asks if he had a chance to review the Coulson affidavits, and he says that he hasn't. She says to let him know when he does, and he says he'll look them over in the morning, says it's been a long day, asks her how she's liking it there, and says it's great, and he asks her for a beer, and says she can tell him his goals. He tells her when you work in a case, you consider them your clients. It doesn't matter who's heading it, they're hers to be had. He's not saying to be desperate and tactless, but she's saying once she passes the bar, his clients are her clients. This is very interesting what we find out here, that he basically is okay with her taking some of his clients, even though obviously they are his clients. He's completely okay with that. And she says she's definitely prettier, and she says that she heard Erin is heading to XHP case now, and he says how she heard it, and she says she thought everyone did. He says he's still heading on it, and Wright just making a statement, and she says she's just trying to align herself with the right person, and he says that he can see she doesn't need any lessons in office politics, and she says he better watch out for her. He says she should focus on becoming a better lawyer first. Then she asks if should is the key word there, and he says it always is, and she asks if they should get another drink, and they then go to a guest house, and things get a lot, the relation between David and Christine dramatically changes this episode, definitely. You really do see that here. They become a lot more than just colleagues, and I really did like seeing that. I think from the second that Dave was introduced, you could tell he was going to play a significant role in Christine's life, not just on the show, but also in Christine's life, and this is a perfect example of that. And basically, they go to this guest house, ask her if she wants a beer. He says he bought this place for late nights at the office, and it's been getting a lot of use lately since he and Megan are having problems. He gives her the beer, and they actually end up having sex, surprisingly, which I was a bit surprised about, but also not, because it just seemed like that would make sense. I mean, think of all the other men that Christine has had control over. She has control over David. Obviously, she's going to have sex with him, because, again, Christine wants to have that control. And as usual, she is in control here, even when she's not Chelsea, which I found very interesting. Basically, she treats this exactly how she does with all her clients. This isn't as big as a deal to her. To her, this is just another sexual encounter. It's not much of anything else. And afterwards, she quickly gets dressed. And here's the thing. Many people might say, what is really being accomplished in the sex scenes? Well, what is being accomplished is that Christine is in control. That is totally what's being accomplished. As we know, she doesn't like do something unless something is being accomplished. And that totally is what's being accomplished. Her having sex is what is being accomplished, which honestly, it's a very interesting way to look at it, but it's very interesting. I really did like seeing that. And Chelsea, then afterwards, she quickly gets dressed, and he tells her that she can sleep there, and she says she tosses and turns and won't want to bother him. He says he's not a good sleeper anyway. She says she has to get up early anyway by 5. She says she's only staying because she's really tired, and he says he's flattered by that. She crawls into bed with him, and she then meets up with Kevin and tells him it's not about him. He says he's having a hard time trying to understand why it's not, and she says she just couldn't make exceptions, and he says he knew this. She tells him that he will sell the hotel, and she knows that he will, and basically she doesn't want to, she just couldn't, it's a very interesting scene between Christine and Chelsea and Kevin, the way that relationship is changing. Ryan then tells Christine that he has to go to work on the 21st for a couple of meetings and will be there for 3 or 4 days, and asks her if she wants to come, and she said that she'd love that, and again, we don't really know how she's feeling about this, but basically she just has to say yes because that's part of her job. And Ryan then sees his friend Bill is there with his wife Lynn and asks what he's doing there, and he says that they came to see a couple of shows, and Lynn wanted to do some shopping, and Bill says they're staying at the Four Seasons. Ryan says he'll phone over and they can all go over for some drinks while he's in town, and Bill agrees to it and says they'll be there till Sunday. However, when Lynn says to tell his wife Kathleen they said hi, he gets quite upset but assures Christine he's alright, and Christine then gets a call from Ryan and picks it up thinking it's Ryan, and then we get the end of this episode here, which I thought was incredible. It's actually a woman's voice, and of course we knew this was going to happen from the promos, but just hearing the words of this is Ryan's wife, I mean, you can really tell this is starting to become a problem for Christine. I think Christine very well knew going into this the problems that she'd have, and Christine, you can see that was visibly shaken here. She doesn't know what to do, she's very disturbed. She never thought it would get this bad, and Kathleen asks if she has no response, but you have to think the position that Kathleen is really in. I mean, she has a husband who she knows is, having sex with someone else behind her back, and she's very well aware of that, but she didn't know who it was. She finally got the information. She's obviously not going to hold back. She's going to try to contact them. She wants to know more about them, and I thought this was a very interesting scene. She says she'll pay her $10,000 to stay away from Ryan altogether. She asks what happens if she doesn't want it, and Kathleen says she'll make it $20K, then asks what name she makes the checks out to, and Christine says she doesn't accept checks. She then calls Abby, and basically, it's a very interesting scene with Christine. The fact that Kathleen, you actually sympathize with her. Kathleen is not at all a bitch, at all. She really, you understand, I think Kathleen really does understand what Christine is doing. She understands this is Christine's job, but she obviously basically says to her, look, I'm not judging you, but just stay away from my husband. That's what she wants her to do. She then calls Abby, asks her if she's abnormally selfish, and she thinks that she could be a sociopath, and Abby assures her that she's not, and Christine asks if she's sure if she can be sure, and Abby says sociopaths don't ask if they're sociopaths. She works them all day, and she knows when she sees one. And it's a very interesting scene because we know, of course, Christine pretty much shuts anyone out of her life, and that kind of is what a sociopath does. If you guys know, a sociopath pretty much shuts people out of their life and doesn't know how to have regular conversations. It's a very complicated way a sociopath is, but in many ways, Christine does have sociopathic, actions, but she's not a straight-up sociopath. But I do feel that Christine might be heading in the direction just from this scene. So Chelsea then meets with Kathleen, asks her if she knew her and Ryan had children, and she's sure that he talked about her as well, and then gives her the money. Asks if she's going to count that in front of her, and Chelsea says she trusts her, and Kathleen says she keeps thinking about all the horrible things she wants to say to her, but she can't because she genuinely feels sorry for her and tells her stay away from her family, or she will come after her. And what I loved about this scene is, again, you do see that Kathleen does understand. She just wants her to stay away. She pretty much just wants, her husband back. She knows that she can't have her husband back, but she does want him back, and that's how the episode ends. And overall, guys, a really great episode. I definitely really did enjoy it. Like I said, I don't have as many questions about this episode because of the fact that I've already seen episode 5, but some really great stuff here, and as I said, there really is a lot of crossing the line happening here. A lot of her clients are not really taking advantage, but it's going a lot further and a lot deeper than I think Christine ever thought it would be, and as we know, nothing, when nothing is being accomplished, she's simply not interested. And in those scenes, you have to wonder, is she really disturbed? Is she uncomfortable? What's she really feeling? It's a very interesting sense of what's going on there. I definitely really do like that, but you can tell the relation between Christine and David is really changing, and to Christine, again, this isn't really much of anything. She kind of sees it as another sexual encounter, and I think it's a very interesting direction to take her in. I like seeing Abby because that dynamic there is really interesting, the way that Abby is there with Christine, and that Christine is asking her all these questions. I find that very interesting. I really do like seeing that, and it really does make sense, like I said, how we haven't seen, Avery or Jake into the story, and I really love seeing that. I think we get a little bit more insight as to what's going on between Jake and Christine, because like I said, we didn't know that something was going on between those two. We knew from episode 2, and finally we addressed it here, so we do know that something's going on between Jake and Christine. as far as Ryan goes, is she going to agree to go on this vacation with Ryan? Obviously, Kathleen said straight out, I want you to stay away from my husband, but that doesn't mean that Christine is necessarily going to listen to her. We don't really know what's going to happen there. That's going to be very interesting. But over, guys, up to your thoughts on this episode. Obviously, I did see episode 5, so I don't have as many thoughts in it. I will review episode 5 next. That will definitely be my next review. And yes, I will be reviewing Game of Thrones as well tonight, but I will be reviewing episode 5. Notice, guys, saw this episode, love to hear your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for episode 5, The Girlfriend Experience, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.